Hello, welcome back to another video. I quite often get asked how do I train for these ultra races and bikepacking events. So I thought I'd basically sort of document my training as I prepare for the races next year in 2026. So yeah, this is I guess the training series. Now this is going to be more of a training diary rather than a how to train type series. I'm not a qualified coach or anything like that. However, I've been training like this, or in a similar manner, for the best part of 20 years now. Like training with power in a very structured manner. So yeah, hopefully this will be interesting, and you can use some tips. And like I say, it's kind of I'm self-coached. I have had coaches in the past, and the way I train now is kind of taking the best bits from the previous coaches I've had, adding my own thoughts, because obviously these ultra endurance things are fairly specific and not necessarily what most coaches are taught to train for. So yeah, hopefully it's useful, and I'll head back into my office at home, and I'm going to refer to training peaks quite a lot in these videos. That's what I record my training on, and I'll explain what I do. So back home to the office. Right, back home now, warmed up, had a shower, quite enjoyed actually riding the sunshine today. So that was the start basically of my sort of training for 2026. However, we're now towards the end of November, and my season's finished sort of mid-September at Alps Divide. So basically in this video I'm going to run you through my, I guess, off-season, and the riding I've done. I've not just done nothing, and how I'm preparing to start training, if that makes sense. So let's go over to Training Peaks. Now I'm going to show you Training Peaks quite a lot. This is essentially a bit of software. You may well be familiar with it. I apologize, this is not going to be it's going to be quite information heavy. There's not going to be loads of epic shots of doing intervals on steep hills or anything like that. It's just quite a lot of information. So Training Peaks is what I use, and it's kind of, I guess, the standard within coaching in cycling specifically, for recording and planning training. And a lot of coaches, there's an interface between coaches and athletes. And this is how I plan out my training and record everything I've done. So I'm going to refer to this a lot. Before I go any further, I do actually have a sponsor for my training series, which I'm gonna try and do regularly, probably around every month or so throughout the year. Certainly up to my bigger goals anyway. Sponsored by Talk Fitness. You may or may not have heard of Talk before. They've actually been around for 25 years. They do sports nutrition, so all your gels, drinks, recovery drinks, all of that stuff, which is kind of like nutrition's a really key cornerstone for training. And you'll see as I go through my training how I kind of use these kind of sports products. I mean, there's plenty of brands out there, but I've come on board with Talk for 2026, and I'm very pleased to be riding on Talk again, because in actual fact, they've been going 25 years. I've been racing most of those 25 years, and Talk's always been kind of there or thereabouts for me. And I used to actually I rode on their team way back. So here's an embarrassing photo. This was on the South Downs double attempt that I did. It was in 2011. You can see I was racing on the actual Talk team there. I've been coached by Matt, the owner of Talk, and I've used those products extensively at this time, and kind of over the years as well. So yeah, really great stuff. So yeah, Talk are sponsoring me. I'll put a link on the screen. There's an extra 10% discount for anyone who wants stuff. And yeah, you'll see as I go through this my training how I use kind of energy product. Obviously, you see a lot of stuff at the moment. You see World Tour riders going on about how they have 150 grams of carbohydrates per hour and all of that nonsense, which is, has its place for sure. But I'll show you how I kind of, I guess, fuel my training, because that is pretty important in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, a big thank you to Talk for supporting me and this series over the next year. I'm going to start at the end of last year, that is, or the end of my cycling season, which was Alps Divide. Now the year went it went fairly well as a whole. I think it's always important to reflect. I was quite close, fourth at the Hellenic race. Atlas at the start of the year, I think I was 12th or 14th, I can't remember. That was a bit of disappointment, but then I was 4th at Hellenic. Again, on paper a good result, but I was half an hour off the podium, so a little bit of me is quite disappointed about that. And then Silk Road, I got myself into 2nd position, but had to scratch because of a mechanical which I couldn't repair. And so I came home early from Silk Road. I felt like I was absolutely flying, some of the best form I've had for a while, and went straight into Alps Divide less than 2 weeks later. And again, I was 2nd there by about an hour and 45 minutes. Had a few tyre issues, i.e. I hit a massive rock and cut the tyre. So yeah, again, good result, but a little bit disappointing. It was a year of what ifs, I think. But yeah, it's good fuel for the fire, ready to go into next year. So you can see on the side here, if you're not familiar with Training Peaks, it sort of shows you the duration, total duration, and the bike duration. But for me, this time of year, total duration of training and bike duration is about the same. When you're doing an ultra, it's going to be pretty skewed in terms of volume. So that was like a 35-hour week and a 53-hour week, which is substantial, I'd say. And I was pretty tired, given the fact I was straight on the back of Silk Road as well, which was, again, similar numbers. So after that, I got home. I had basically a week doing absolutely nothing, not touching the bike. And then basically the cyclocross season started, and I love racing cross. I think it's really good in the winter. It gives me something to aim for kind of every week. I probably shouldn't have been racing it the weekend after I finished Alps Divide, to be honest. But I wanted to go. It's a good social. I just quite like razzing around on my bike on a cyclocross course. So that's what I did. Did the sort of Central League, got my head kicked in, had absolutely no zip in my legs whatsoever. I was actually going to try and do a 25-mile time trial the day after, but it got cancelled basically as I was on the start line, mainly because I'd been doing loads of time trials in the summer, and I did a PB, and this was a fast course, and I knew I had some form in my legs and fitness, so I just wanted to see how I went. But in the end, it got cancelled, which was a good thing because I was pretty knackered. So then you can see I didn't do much. A little bit of gym. Gym's really important for what I do. I just get really skinny in the winter. In the summer. All these long endurance rides, they basically kind of eat my body up essentially. So I finished the year quite skinny, and as I'm quite tall, 6'3", that's at 190 odd centimeters. I find if I don't do a lot of core stuff, I get back issues, and I want to build a solid foundation. So you're going to see over the next few weeks that my kind of main goal was to just build up that sort of core foundation, the strength, a lot of gym work. So this was just a recovery session, so basically really light, just to kind of get everything activated again, because after I've been on the bike for like 2 big ultra races, your body gets molded into bike riding, and then you do some squats and you're pretty smashed for a few days, so it took a while to build up to it. I did end up doing a few more cyclocross races. Actually, my best race of the year was this one here. The London League in Pippingfield, I got 5th, but I was in 3rd for most of the race and just faded a bit on the last lap. But I think it was a combination of the form from the summer and a little bit of rest coming through. So yeah, I did quite well, but it's gone downhill since then, if I'm being totally honest. So those were my, I guess, off-season weeks. I was still moving quite a lot, but you can see there's no real structure. We're looking at like 5 or 6 hours on the bike, if that, and then 45 minutes in the gym there. Did a little bit more here. You can see a bit more kind of gym stuff, some strength work, and I started doing some muscle tension intervals. And basically this is how I've gone on the past month or so, or 2 months. So what does gym work look like? And so I'll start with that basically, because that's these are going to be the core sessions I've done in the off season. It's basically been these muscle tension intervals, which are essentially low cadence intervals on the bike, and strength work. So my strength work, I've got like a bit of a routine I do, a bit of a warm up, and then I'm basically focusing on squats and deadlifts, and then I have a kind of core strength series I do. So it'd be like split squats and like side lunges and things like that. So I use these big rubber, I think they're called Vibe tubes. It's like basically a big rubber weighted tube, and you can see at the moment this is how I do them. I mean, the weight's not spectacular. I think the lightest tube I have is 6 kilograms. The heaviest one is 10 kilograms. And the weights on the deadlifts and squats, I mean, I'm a cyclist, so they're pretty pathetic. But, you know, it's it builds up, and this is early on. So that's the kind of the weight stuff. And then the muscle tension and intervals, as I said, they're not really kind of about aerobic load or like building like, you know, aerobic capacity or anything like that. It's purely sort of muscle stuff. So it's about a zone 3 effort if you're kind of, or tempo if you're kind of au fait with those zones. If you don't, there's loads of videos that explain all that. I'm not going to sort of go into that as well here. But essentially 4 by 8 minutes with about 4 minutes in between, just rolling the gear in a kind of a medium pace, 50 RPM, just trying to get strength. And I think that works really well with the strength stuff. And then again, I'm racing cyclocross at the weekends just for a bit of fun. And also I think the cyclocross for me is maintenance. If you kind of don't do anything called winter or not any of those top end efforts, you do tend to lose quite a bit of fitness, aerobic fitness, especially as I found I've got older. But instead, I kind of, you know, I like racing cross. It's good fun. I think it's good for your reactions, your bike handling. It's good social. It's good fun, and it just maintains that top end fitness. So when it comes to start training later, sort of in the winter, you're starting from a higher place. So you can see here, still like 7 hours on the bike, nothing too much. And then this was the first big sort of week. You may have seen a video from a few weeks back when I bike packed to the Bespoke show in Dresden, went to Wrocław, I think you say it, in Poland, and then cycled just about 200 miles to Dresden. Basically, it's kind of, for me, doing these long rides, you just need to do them. So you feel pretty crappy for the first day, but then your body soon learns. So I always like to do a long kind of block just before I start training, just to sort of get my body working again and remind it what it's all about. So that ended up being an 18-hour week, not much gym in that week. But for me, this was a point in the calendar at which I needed to start kind of putting some concerted effort into training again. So this is the start of October. This was my sort of, I guess, my strength block, let's call it. So this is my block that I do before I get into training. So basically gym, cyclocross, and you can see I've also did a few more of the muscle tension intervals. So yeah, just building up. You can see the weights are going up here. Again, starting with two sets of 50k on the squats, going up to 3 sets, like an extra 10 kilos on the last one. Same on the deadlifts. Just building up a little bit at a time. Ride in the morning for like an hour or so, a couple of hours maybe. Actually, the weather was pretty good at this time, so I was doing a bit more. Then cyclocross. The one thing about doing weights and cyclocross at the same time, they're not very complementary, so I was getting pretty battered in the cyclocross, to be honest. But it's good fun. I enjoy it. So yeah, I keep doing it. And then I saw the physio. Donna is my physio. And then I kind of really started kind of getting into it. So again, endurance rides, a bit of cyclocross, the squats, the weight stuff's going up in terms of intensity or weight. So getting up to 60 kilos. Again, it's not going to totally impress anyone, but it builds up over time. And this is my adaptation phase. So again, you can see I'm doing it more consistently, and I've started doing muscle tension intervals before I do the weights on certain days as well. So that leads to, it's quite a big day of effort. So it's 100 TSS, that's your training stress score. And then I put in about 50 for the strength. So that's a reasonable day. You're not building too much, but you can see the numbers here, my fitness numbers. They're sort of staying about stable, dropping slightly, but you know, about stable. And then I do a big block of weights, like a hypertrophy phase. So 2 weeks where basically my main focus is just putting on as much muscle as I can. So this is the bit before I really start riding loads on the bike. And as you can see, it's not crazy heavy, but I'm doing 6 sets of 10 on the squats and the deadlifts, and 4 sets of 10 on all the other exercises. And doing like back to back. So I have a heavier day and then I drop it back a little bit on the lighter day. On the heavier day, I'm also doing muscle tension intervals. And you can see I've gone up to 4x8 and then 4x10 as well. I was actually feeling really strong on these because your muscles get a bit sore from the weight stuff, because you're just rolling a big gear. It's kind of not too dissimilar to doing like the weights in terms of squats. I mean, my kind of fluidity's gone out the window by this point. I'm just muscling the gears around, but again, you're just building muscle. My endurance rides here, I quite often do my fixie. So I've got a Surly steamroller, which you can see on screen now. And I basically just go out on the fixie, and I like riding fixed because you don't have to think. You just sort of take your brain out a little bit. And I just think it's really good for really good for pedaling technique. So keeping smooth, like you have to do over-geared efforts on some of the climbs, which complements the weight training. And then when you've got tailwind or you're downhill, you're spilling really fast and you can't stop pedaling. On a fixie, it's like a track bike. If you stop pedaling, you're going to fly off the bars. So yeah, I feel like it really is complementary. So quite often these sort of endurance rides here, they'd just be me like razzing around on a fixie. So it's quite a fun little block. I mean, you do feel it the first couple of days doing these hypertrophy stuff. It's fine. Later on, you just get totally battered. And by the end, the last one was just before I went to Rilla Live, which is the show in London. I was totally battered and I was really quite sore. Yeah, you can see these here, like the little notes here. These are just yoga. So I do it on the Wahoo app. I've been using that for years. It's pretty good, 15-minute yoga sessions. And yeah, pretty good. So in terms of fueling, obviously building muscle takes quite a lot of energy. So basically it's a good excuse to eat a ton. So on the bike rides, I try and overfuel a little bit. So for example, if I was doing the muscle tension interval, I'd probably take 90 grams of carbs in a bottle. So use some of the Torque Energy mix. I don't really use the dosage on the that's kind of recommended on the bottles. I think you can have like 30 or 40 grams in a 500 ml bottle, according to the Torque website. But I just chuck in like 90, 100. And I have it quite thick, but I have one bottle of water, one bottle of energy drink. And I just basically know then that if I have finished that drink, I've got 90 grams of carbs in. So I'd basically drink that while I was doing my hard efforts. And then when I finished, I'd probably have like one of the gels or just one of the bars. They're 30 grams of carbs, just to make sure that I'm not kind of like too depleted of glycogen in my muscles before I then went home and did the hypertrophy stuff. So I'd normally come home, have lunch, and do that. Now, I guess it's important to note my lifestyle. I'm pretty flexible with my time, so I'm able to actually basically train in the morning. I don't have to I can float work around training. However, this could work quite well if you've got a full-time job, either doing gym in the morning and then training in the evening, or vice versa. So yeah, it's quite complementary. And basically over that time, over those 2 weeks, I went up to 76 kilograms. So a little bit of fat, and I think I put quite a bit of muscle on. And I decided to do a cross race straight after that, which was dumb. But it was quite fun. But yeah, my legs were just totally dead. Couldn't really do anything. So you're looking at sort of 8.5 hours on the bike here. Actually, I don't put a time on the gym stuff, but it's like an hour to hour and a half in the gym each day. So yeah, it's kind of proper training by this point. And again, the fitness score here, it's kind of stabilized. It's not really going up. It's not really going down. And I needed a rest week after that. So this was my rest week. Obviously, I got ill straight away. And you can probably hear my voice now. It's taken a while to shift. So I didn't do any gym, mainly because I had a bit of a cold. And I had a little adventure. I went to Amsterdam and cycled home on a cargo bike. So there'll be a video coming home about that soon. But as you can see, it's just kind of like steady endurance. Nothing too fancy. Just riding my bike. And enjoying it. The plan was to start training properly on this weekend here, but it never really happened. I did it was terrible weather. B, I could feel the cold coming along. So I just did some light gym stuff just to keep the body going. A few harder efforts on the turbo, but nothing too much. That was a 12-hour week. So yeah, kind of building up, ready to train. And now I'm on my training week. So I think that'll be in the next video. So yeah, that is pretty much that's my off season, I guess. So a lot of gym work, a lot of strength training, a lot of low cadence efforts, and yeah, just trying not to get ill, which I've kind of failed at. So yeah, hopefully that was useful and interesting. Obviously there's loads of different ways to do this, so if you've got any questions, just put them in the comments. I'll try and answer if I can, and yeah, catch you in the next video.